Congressman Hakeem Jeffries preached at Brownsville SDA Church last Sabbath.
When Barack Obama was on the campaign trail running to be America's first black president, Joe Biden wasn't his only running mate. Jesus was there.
Now, being in the SDA pulpit as a politician sparked debate between some SDAs. Some SDAs were concerned that Hakeem Jeffries was allowed to preach in the pulpit. In the Brownsville SDA Church pulpit last Sabbath. I will share that debate with you after we watch the sermon by Hakeem Jeffries at the Brownsville SDA Church. All right, so let's get into it and listen to Congressman Hakeem Jeffries in SDA pulpits.
Family, happy Sabbath. It's an honor and a blessing to be with you once again. I'm no stranger, of course, to this great church. Well, I grew up in the Cornerstone Baptist Church, as many of you know, continue to worship there, but I spent so much time at the SDA Church. I might have to start keeping the Sabbath holy. But it's a blessing, of course, to be with you on this Black History Sabbath as we celebrate all throughout this month. And to be clear, Black history is American history. Black history is world history. And we will never let anyone erase it. Thankful for the celebration today as you shine a spotlight, of course, on Haiti, Trinidad, and Tobago, St. Vincent's, and the Grenadines. But we shine a spotlight, of course, on America, on the Caribbean, on South America, and on Mother Africa. Black history is world history, our history. Now, these are certainly challenging times, as has been outlined in this country, all across the world increasingly, but I still think there's a whole lot for us to be thankful for. I'm just thankful that God woke us up this morning, started us on our way. Thankful that we've made it through to another year. Thankful that the SDA Church is a shelter in the time of storm. And I'm also thankful for the knowledge that while mayors come and mayors go, presidents come and presidents go. Through it all, God is still on the throne. And so we will press on until victory is won. Now, having grown up in the Cornerstone Baptist Church, yes, I am a public servant. I'm not a preacher. But I'm also not allergic to the word amen. In fact, letting you in on a little secret, the more amens that I hear, the faster I'll be. Heard a couple of amens already. Works every time. But there's a word on today, one of my favorite passages of Scripture. It comes from Luke, the 8th chapter, verses 22 through 25. Luke, the 8th chapter, verses 22 through 25. In the New International Version, hear ye now the word of the Lord. One day Jesus said to his disciples, let's go over to the other side of the lake. So they got into a boat and set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep. A squall came down on the lake, so that the boat was being swamped and they were in great danger. The disciples went and woke him, saying, Master, Master, we're going to drown. He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided and all was calm. Where is your faith? He asked his disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. I want to speak for just a few moments under the theme, like a good neighbor, Jesus is there. Like a good neighbor, Jesus is there. You know, as your Congress member here in Brownsville and in East New York and Canarsie, Bed-Stuy, Central Brooklyn into Coney Island and South Brooklyn, I have the honor of representing almost 800,000 people. Good people, amazing people, talented people, God-fearing people. But every now and then I encounter folks who, notwithstanding all of the talent and ability and capacity in the world that they have, they remain stuck in place. Good folks who remain anchored down in place, anchored down on the job, unable to get the promotion that they deserve, anchored down in a relationship, unable to take the next step, anchored down at home, unable to get off the couch and support your family, anchored down in the community, unable to get off the street corner and do something productive with your life. Some folks anchored down in church. I'm not talking about Brownsville. Anchored down in church, unable to get off the pew and get involved in a single church ministry. Some folks anchored in place. Text says that Jesus and the disciples came upon a lake, and Jesus said, let's go over to the other side. Now watch this. Jesus didn't mention a specific address. He simply said, let's go over to the other side. Jesus didn't mention a specific location. He simply said, let's go over to the other side. Jesus didn't mention a specific destination. He simply said, let's go over to the other side. Sometimes you just have to trust God and get on the boat. That's my first observation that jumps out from the scripture. Trust God and get on the boat, or you might just miss your crossover moment. Let me see if I can illustrate the point a little more. The African impala is commonly referred to as the deer of the continent of Africa. The impala, this great creature, has the ability to leap heights of up to 10 feet and to cover distances greater than 30 feet. But you can keep the impala, this magnificent creature, the deer of the continent of Africa, trapped in any zoo in the world with a brick wall no more than 3 feet high, because the impala will not jump if it cannot see where his feet will land. Watch this. The impala has all the talent, all the ability, all the capacity in the world, but you can keep it trapped behind a brick wall no more than 3 feet high, because it will not jump if it cannot see where its feet will land. Refuses to take a leap of faith. Folks in our community, all the talent, all the capacity, all the ability in the world, but are anchored down by anxiety, anchored down by insecurity, anchored down by uncertainty. But I stopped by to make clear that the text is saying to us, sometimes you just have to trust God and get on the boat, or you might just miss your crossover moment. Let me see if I can go a little deeper. There was a young man who just completed college at a prominent school down in the South. Completed college and decided that he would go pursue a doctorate in theology up north. This young man came from a prominent family. His father was a well-known, national, celebrated preacher. And because of this young man's pedigree and capacity, it was expected that upon completion of his doctorate in theology, he would be able to secure the pastorship at a prominent church somewhere in the South. And after he graduated, got his doctorate degree, it turns out that there was an opening at the First Baptist Church of Chattanooga, down in Tennessee. And so he went down and delivered the trial sermon. By all accounts, it went well. Came back home, waited for a few weeks, finally heard from someone from the pastoral search committee who said, well, young man, you did a good job. We think you're going to be a fine preacher, but just not at this church. And the young man was disappointed, disillusioned, devastated by the news. Turns out that he had also applied for an opening to be the pastor at a small little church in Montgomery, Alabama. Didn't expect anything to come of it, wasn't that interested in pastoring that church, but after he got the disappointing news, they called and they invited him to serve. Now here's the thing, his father didn't want him to accept the pastorship because the church had a reputation of chewing up young pastors and discarding them. His wife was a little anxious about him accepting the pastorship because she didn't want to be down and raise the family in the heart of the Jim Crow South. But this young man, he decided that he was going to trust God. And he accepted the pastorship at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. Of course, his name was Martin Luther King Jr. Now watch this. Had Martin Luther King Jr. been offered the pastorship at the First Baptist Church of Chattanooga, he never would have accepted the pastorship at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. Had he never accepted the pastorship at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, he never would have been in Montgomery, Alabama. Had he never been in Montgomery, Alabama, he never would have been there when Rosa Parks sat down so that the rest of us could stand up. Had he never been there when Rosa Parks sat down, he never would have led the Montgomery bus boycott. Had he never led the Montgomery bus boycott, he never would have emerged as a national civil rights leader. Had he never emerged as a national civil rights leader, he never would have been asked to speak at the March on Washington. Had he never spoken at the March on Washington, he could have never convinced Congress to pass the 64 Civil Rights Act. Had he never convinced Congress to pass the 64 Civil Rights Act, we never would have gotten to the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and God knows where we would be right now. The Lord works in mysterious ways. Sometimes when one door closes, it just means that another door is about to open, and that's the door that you're supposed to walk through. Sometimes you just have to trust God and get on the boat, or you might just miss your crossover moment. Now watch this. Watch this, that even when you trust God, doesn't mean that everything is going to be smooth sailing. Because we know that life is filled with ups and downs, with highs and lows, with peaks and valleys, with trials and tribulations. You can't get from your point of departure to your point of destination without at some moment along the way encountering turbulence. We're dealing with a turbulent moment in America right now. You can't get from your point of departure to your point of destination without at some moment along the way encountering turbulence. The text says that the disciples were on the boat, crossing over to the other side. Jesus sleeping down below. And all of a sudden, a squall struck. I like that. Can I park right there for a moment? One of the reasons why I like the New International Version is because the text could have used the word storm, but instead it uses the word squall. You see, that's an important distinction. A storm is often preceded by warning signs, like cloudy skies, thunder and lightning, raindrops before the downpour. A storm is often preceded by warning signs, notifying you of impending danger. But a squall is very different. It's defined as a sudden, violent burst of wind, often accompanied by rain, sleet, or snow. It's an unexpected disturbance that catches you by surprise. And in this particular instance, threatened to toss the disciples overboard. I think that's a lot like life. Let me see if I can set the stage here. The weather was serene. The waters were calm. The wind was still. And all of a sudden, a squall struck, threatening to toss the disciples overboard. You see, as we travel throughout life, I think the text is suggesting to us, this is my second point, that in life, you've got to expect the unexpected. I wish things were different, but the text is very clear. You've got to expect the unexpected. Things are going well, and then all of a sudden, a squall strikes. Things are going well on the job, and then all of a sudden, your company downsizes. Things are going well in a relationship, and all of a sudden a breakup takes place. Things are going well with your health, and all of a sudden illness strikes. Things are going well with your finances, and all of a sudden your money gets funny and your change gets strange. Things are going well in the country, and all of a sudden last November a squall strikes. Things are going well. And all of a sudden, a squall strikes. Here's the thing. Let me see if I can illustrate this a little more, because we have to expect the unexpected. That's what the text is saying to us. Reminds me of the time some young folks were gathered at the home of one of the wealthiest people in the world. They gathered at this home. It's a giant estate. And they're on one side of a big lake. And in this lake, there are crocodiles, alligators, one small turtle. The owner of the estate shows up. He's one of the wealthiest people in the world. Shows up. He's on the other side of the lake, sees these young people, calls out to them, says, if any of you are willing to jump in the lake, rescue the turtle, and can make it to the other side, I'll give you anything that you want in this world. About 5 minutes pass by, nobody responds. The owner is disappointed, turns around and walks away. And as he's walking away, all of a sudden he hears a big splash. Turns back around, sees one young person in the lake trying to make it to the other side. Somehow this young person dodges the crocodiles and alligator, makes it to the middle, scoops up the turtle, continues to bob and weave, makes it to the other side, gets out, dries off, hands over the turtle to the owner of the estate, who is pleasantly surprised, says, congratulations. I'm not sure how you did it, but you made it to the other side. And now, as I promised, you can have anything that you want in this world. Young person paused for a moment. He said, well, I just want to know who pushed me in the lake. What am I trying to say? Sometimes in life, you find yourself having to deal with a moment of unexpected adversity. Unexpected adversity. But here's the thing. This is why you've got to expect the unexpected. When you find yourself dealing with a moment of unexpected adversity, you've only got two options. You can either sink or you can swim. And what our journey in Black history teaches us is every time we found ourselves in a tough spot, whether that was slavery or Jim Crow or kidnap or mass incarceration, institutional discrimination. Every time we found ourselves in a tough spot, we always summon the strength and resilience and perseverance to make it to the other side. And why are we able to make it to the other side? Because we understand as a people that faith is the final answer. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. If we walk by faith, not by sight. Faith, if you have faith simply the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. We've come this far by faith. Faith is the final answer. Text says that the disciples were on the boat, crossing over to the other side. Jesus is sleeping down below. All of a sudden, the squall struck, and the disciples ran to wake up Jesus. Said, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." Jesus, of course, being the Son of God, wakes up and immediately perceives the danger. He calms the waters and stills the raging wind, and then he asks a question that all of us have to confront right now. Where is your faith? When Dr. King was locked up in a Birmingham jail, situations seemed hopeless before the March on Washington, before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act. Jesus was there. When Barack Obama was on the campaign trail running to be America's first black president, Joe Biden wasn't his only running mate. Jesus was there. He's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Prince of Peace, the Lily of the Valley, the bright and morning star, the Lion of Judah. He's a doctor in the operating room. He's a lawyer in the courtroom. He's the CEO in the boardroom. Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right?
All right, that was Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. And as I shared with you earlier, some Adventists did not understand why the leadership of the Brownsville SDA church allowed a politician to preach in the pulpit last Sabbath. So there were some interesting comments under the video that I want to share with you. Friends, this person said, "What is taking place in our SDA churches? A politician preaching in our pulpit, and on top of that, the pastor stated that he is a SDA. No, he is not. Woe be unto the leadership which is leading a lot of its members down to hell. And again, a woman pastor, we really gone through. Lord have mercy." That is interesting. And there were some group of people that did not agree with the comment. This person also says, "If you are only concerned about the person who is delivering the message, you'll never get to where God needs you to be." This person also says, "Is he preaching the three angels message necessary for this time?" Another person also says, "If the message doesn't resonate with you, then that's okay. It doesn't mean that it doesn't align with what someone else is going through. I was blessed by the message today." Another person also says, "You are so misguided and a hypocrite. God can use anyone he wants to, not just SDAs and not just men. You need prayer. Your salvation is in jeopardy. Judge not, lest you be judged. I pray for you. Thanks to the pastor of this church and to the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries for blessing us today." Another person also says, "Church and state meet." And the last person says, "Church and state image is being formed." All right. So friends, these are some interesting comments that people were actually sharing under the video. So we can see that there were some SDAs that were concerned about Hakeem Jeffries being allowed in the pulpit, and there were other SDAs that were like, there is nothing wrong with inviting Hakeem Jeffries to preach in the pulpit. God can use anybody. Okay. Now, I want to know what you think about this video. Did the leadership of the Brownsville SDA church go wrong by inviting Hakeem Jeffries, a politician, a non-Adventist, to preach in the pulpit last Sabbath? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Friends, this is all that I had to share with you today. Thanks for watching. As you all know, I share and comment on events that are taking place both within and outside of the SDA church. Thanks for watching again. See you next time. God bless.